Going through the loss of a soulmate is a heartbreak I wouldn't wish upon anyone, not even those I least admire. My name is Amy, and the sorrow of losing my husband came just 3 years after our vows. Our life together was blissful. I had left my job owing to a high-risk pregnancy, eager to welcome our baby girl. However, destiny had cruel plans. My husband was diagnosed with cancer at its terminal stage, battling bravely for 4 months before succumbing to the disease. During his fight, we moved in with my in-laws, Carol and William, who offered their support as best as they could. Despite solely caring for my husband, I was thankful for their willingness to shelter us when affording our place became impossible. After my husband's passing, I hoped for continued emotional support from them, a hope that proved naively optimistic. The warmth they once offered turned cold immediately following the funeral. Carol and William began to demean both me and my unborn child, viewing us as burdens. I reassured them of my plans to secure employment and contribute financially, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. Money wasn't their issue, with all expenses covered by my sister-in-law, Angela, who was well employed. Yet my in-laws remained unmoved, insisting I was unwelcoming and underserving of their assistance. William starkly reminded me of my changed status in their eyes, suggesting my connection to them died with their son. In desperation, I pleaded for just a few more days' shelter, especially considering my precarious pregnancy. What followed was a chilling suggestion from my father-in-law, hinting at abortion as the solution, a stance shockingly unchallenged by Carol. Their hostility peaked when they deceitfully took me to an abortion clinic under the guise of a health checkup. Realizing their intentions, I protested vehemently and left. Returning to their house was an ordeal, but it underscored the dire need to forge a new path for myself and my unborn daughter, away from the toxic environment my in-laws created. Overwhelmed with grief and shock, I was beside myself with tears, reeling from Carol and William's insistence on terminating my pregnancy. Upon their return, they were furious, questioning why I had fled the clinic. They demanded an abortion, dismissing my pleas and my right to choose, coldly stating they had no intention of supporting me or my unborn child now that their son was gone. I tried to remind them of the family ties, that the baby I carried was their grandchild, but my words fell on deaf ears. Their ultimatum was harsh and clear: either I leave or get an abortion. The reality of their rejection hit me hard, especially so soon after my husband's passing. Carol forcibly escorted me out, ignoring my protests and the danger their actions posed to my pregnancy. Outnumbered and concerned for my baby's well-being, I was left with no choice but to exit. Standing on their porch, I was in despair, realizing I had nowhere to go and no financial support. I reminded them of the financial sacrifices I had made, believing we were family, only to be met with indifference. They denied any familial bonds with me or the baby, explicitly stating they had no desire for a granddaughter, and accused me of attempting to manipulate them with the baby's existence. Their words were cruel, suggesting that without their support, our survival was inconsequential to them. These were among the last heartless words they directed at me before they shut their door, leaving me isolated and without even the necessities or my important documents. In that moment of abandonment, I faced the harsh reality of their complete rejection and indifference toward the life of their grandchild and me. In those moments, sitting on the porch enveloped in despair, I felt utterly shattered and powerless. After crying inconsolably for about 30 minutes, Carol and William confronted me with harsh words, demanding to know why I was still there and insisting I leave their property immediately. Their threat to call the police if I didn't vacate was the final push. I needed to understand they were serious. Fearful for both my safety and that of my unborn child, and knowing my lack of legal standing without my name on the lease, I gathered my strength and began to walk away, tears streaming down my face. Having walked a few blocks, feeling directionless and overwhelmed, I decided to call Angela, holding on to a sliver of hope that she might offer me some support. The moment she answered, my emotions, amplified by pregnancy hormones, burst forth uncontrollably. Somehow, through my sobs, I managed to convey my location to her but could articulate nothing more. Angela, alarmed by my distress, quickly came to pick me up. Angela's home became a sanctuary in that storm. She soothed me, gently reminding me of the need to try and control my tears for the baby's sake. She didn't press for details, but focused on comforting me, even preparing food and a smoothie to ease my turmoil. Once I had calmed down somewhat, Angela, with a grave tone, urged me to share what had transpired. Her assurance of support, regardless of the circumstances, was a balm to my raw emotions. I hesitated, knowing the involvement of her parents in my plight might change things between us. "Angela, something significant happened." "It's about your parents," I managed to say, bracing for her reaction. Angela's response was a moment of silence, a pause that felt like an eternity as she processed the implications. Her commitment to support me, especially knowing I carried her niece, was steadfast. Yet the revelation that her parents were at the heart of my despair tested that promise. As I hesitantly revealed the involvement of her parents in my plight, I feared Angela might take offense at my accusations against them. But her reaction, after a brief pause, was one of concern and openness. She assured me in a gentle tone that my fears of offending her were unfounded and encouraged me to share my ordeal. When I confessed that her parents had not only kicked me out, but also attempted to coerce me into an abortion, her shock was palpable. The revelation seemed almost unbelievable to her, a stark contrast to the image she held of her family. Angela's confusion deepened as I detailed the extent to which her parents had gone, including their drive to force an abortion upon me under the guise of a clinic visit, a plan thwarted only by the understanding staff at the clinic. I could see the turmoil of shock and disbelief in her eyes as she processed my words, struggling to reconcile them with the parents she knew. Her disbelief turned to horror as I explained their motive: fear of financial and caregiving responsibilities for my child and me. Despite my assurances of independence and my plans to find work, they remained unmoved. Angela's astonishment grew as I disclosed the financial deceit over my husband's supposed medical bills, a lie that stripped me of the last of my resources. Angela was adamant that no such debts existed. She had personally seen to her brother's expenses to ensure her parents weren't burdened financially. The realization that her parents had manipulated me into surrendering the little money left to me by my late husband hit me hard, renewing my tears. It was a cruel lesson in the depths of their greed and callousness, exploiting my vulnerability for their gain. Angela's silence was a testament to her shock and dismay at the actions of her parents, actions that betrayed not just me but the memory of their son. After allowing me the space to express my grief, Angela's response was one of empathy and apology, although the rapidity and severity of her parents' actions left her struggling to grasp the full extent of their betrayal. Her support at that moment was a sliver of kindness in the overwhelming darkness of my situation. "I haven't had the chance to tell you about the financial aspect of things." "Angela, please, you don't need to apologize," I said, overwhelmed by her generosity. "You've already done so much by covering the medical expenses. Without your help, I would have been submerged in a sea of debt." Angela's actions were the epitome of familial support, a stark contrast to her parents' selfishness. She admitted she always knew her parents prioritized their desires, but never imagined they would stoop so low as to deny me a temporary home until I could stand on my own. Angela's disbelief turned to determination as she insisted that I wasn't alone and vowed that her parents' actions wouldn't go unchallenged. Her resolve led her to confront them directly over the phone. She needed to hear their justification firsthand. Not that she doubted my story, but she wanted to gauge their response. During the call, Angela's straightforward questioning about their decision to eject me revealed their true colors. Their defense was weak, claiming no intention of harm, yet unable to explain their insistence on such a drastic action against their grandchild. Angela's anger was palpable as she pressed for an explanation, her parents' attempts at justification only serving to deepen the wound. Listening to them try to rationalize their actions was heartbreaking. Even faced with their daughter's outrage, William and Carol clung to their excuses, insisting on their right to a carefree retirement, undisturbed by the needs of their late son's family. Their claim of having already done enough by caring for their son in his final months laid bare their selfishness, viewing their sacrifices as sufficient reason to shun any further responsibility. Their words painted a clear picture. In their eyes, their comfort in retirement outweighed the needs of their grandchild and me. This chilling revelation underscored their willingness to abandon the family for the sake of their ease, a stance that Angela vehemently opposed, her loyalty and support offering a glimmer of hope amidst the bleakness of their rejection. Hearing Carol and William's words was like a blow to my already fragile state. They were adamant about pushing Angela to abandon me, painting a dire picture of me as a burden who would exploit her kindness to my advantage. Their harsh advice to Angela to leave me to fend for myself on the streets, suggesting it would bring me to my senses, was cruel beyond belief. Their words plunged me into despair, fearing for my future and that of my unborn child. But just as I felt the weight of hopelessness, Angela's response ignited a spark of hope. She challenged her parents with fierce protectiveness, questioning their humanity and the very values they purported to uphold. Angela reminded them of the financial support she had provided, which allowed them to retire comfortably, highlighting the irony in their claim of hard work. Her anger was a testament to her disbelief in their actions and intentions. Carol and William's attempt to justify their stance by framing it as a financial safeguard for Angela, even suggesting they'd lie to cover up their demand for my expulsion, was met with Angela's unwavering rebuke. She declared her refusal to mimic their heartlessness, expressing her shock and disgust at their lack of empathy and familial duty. Angela's defense of me and her outright rejection of her parents' manipulative tactics revealed the depth of her character and the genuine bond she felt with me, akin to that of a sister. Her fierce retort to their demands and her readiness to stand against them showed her strength and her resolve to protect what she believed was right, regardless of the personal cost. Her parents' attempts to impose their will were met with Angela's staunch refusal to conform to their heartless demands, challenging their motives and ethics. Angela's stance not only defended me but also upheld the memory of her brother, reflecting her deep love for him and respect for the family ties that her parents were so quick to dismiss. Her courage and integrity in the face of such familial adversity were a beacon of hope in what felt like an endless night. Angela's bold declaration that she would cease her financial support was a significant turning point, leaving William and Carol reeling from the shock. They had never anticipated that Angela would take such a drastic step in my defense. Even I was astounded by her determination to stand up for me so firmly. William and Carol were in disbelief, unable to grasp the reality that Angela was serious about redirecting her support from them to me and my unborn child. Their reaction to Angela's stance was a mixture of confusion and denial, questioning if she truly intended to cut them off financially over what they dismissively referred to as a stupid woman. Angela's resolve was unshakable. She corrected them, emphasizing my importance and her commitment to support me and her future niece, instead of funding the comfortable lifestyle of her parents, who were more than capable of managing on their own. Her declaration marked an end to their exploitation of her generosity, signaling a new priority: my well-being and that of my baby. This stance by Angela left William and Carol scrambling, their earlier confidence dissolving into panic as they faced the real possibility of having to fend for themselves financially. Their attempt to swiftly backtrack from their initial demand for my departure to a sudden willingness to welcome me back was a clear sign of their desperation. They even went as far as to retract their insistence on abortion, suggesting a newfound readiness to figure things out. Angela then passed the decision to me, her smile signaling a power shift. It was my moment to address the situation, to highlight their wrongful actions, and to seek accountability. Calmly, I voiced my doubts about their sincerity, pointing out their egregious behavior and the lack of a genuine apology. Confronted with this, William and Carol hastily offered their apologies, a stark contrast to their previous stance. They expressed regret for their actions and extended an invitation for me to return, promising to make amends. This sudden change of heart was a testament to Angela's influence and the realization that their financial stability was at stake. The situation underscored the power of standing united against unfairness and manipulation, shifting the dynamics in a way that demanded respect and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Struggling with mixed feelings, I confronted William and Carol about the deceitful way they had manipulated me out of my late husband's money, despite Angela covering all the bills. Their scheme had unraveled, revealing their dishonesty and exploitation at a time when I was most vulnerable. Seizing the moment, I demanded the return of the money they had unjustly taken, emphasizing that they had no right to it, given their lack of support during my husband's illness. Reluctantly and likely feeling cornered, William and Carol quickly refunded the money through PayPal, then reached out to Angela, suggesting a return to normalcy as if a financial repayment could erase their wrongdoings. They even proposed setting up a nursery, attempting to lure me back with promises and pretenses of family unity. However, their assumption that a simple apology and refund would mend fences was misplaced. Their expectation of forgiveness, despite their initial willingness to disown me and my unborn child, was a testament to their entitlement. They seemed to believe that these gestures were sufficient for reconciliation, overlooking the depth of hurt they had caused. Firmly, I rejected their notion of family and forgiveness. Their actions, particularly their attempt to coerce me into an abortion, were unforgivable. The audacity to suggest that my daughter would want them in her life after they had so clearly rejected her was appalling. I made it clear that my child did not need such grandparents, emphasizing that their initial rejection and subsequent superficial apologies could not undo the harm they had inflicted. Angela stood by me, reiterating my lack of forgiveness and reaffirming her decision to withdraw her financial support from them. This decision was not taken lightly, but was a direct consequence of their actions and their failure to truly acknowledge the gravity of their wrongdoing. William and Carol's reaction to this finality was one of desperation. Their pleas for us to reconsider, driven by the sudden reality of facing financial responsibilities without Angela's support, were a pitiful sight. Their earlier confidence evaporated, leaving them to reckon with the consequences of their actions, a fitting end to their manipulative attempts to control and discard us according to their whims. Watching William and Carol face the music for their actions was a mix of tough and satisfying moments. They tried to make us feel guilty, but it didn't work. Angela decided enough was enough. She was going to collect my things and then cut ties with them. She even said she'd bring the police to make sure they couldn't keep any of my stuff. True to her word, Angela arrived with a police officer who turned out to be her boyfriend, a surprise to us all. Despite their pleas, I had moved on and blocked them. Angela didn't stop there. She told her whole extended family about what had happened. They were appalled by William and Carol's behavior and rallied around me instead. In the time leading up to my daughter's birth, I was wrapped in a cocoon of love and support. I landed a job through a friend, set to start once daycare was sorted for my little one. For now, I'm staying with Angela, who's been encouraging me to save up for a house to secure our future. Her boyfriend has been an incredible support system. I managed to get a restraining order against William and Carol, thanks to statements from the abortion clinic, ensuring they stayed away from my child and me. My baby girl is healthy and blessed with her father's dark eyes. Seeing them for the first time brought tears to my eyes. Angela has been my rock through this, choosing to sever ties with her parents permanently. Life took a turn for William and Carol. They've downsized to a small apartment and had to return to work because of financial strain. It seems karma has come full circle, placing them in the very situation they wished upon me.